At the age of 80, Robert Mitchum was no longer asked about the films he had made or the directors he had worked with. What people wanted to know at that point was not fame, but the real person behind the spotlight. And in a life that stretched across many decades of Hollywood, he began to realize a simple but difficult truth. Awards, box office success, and iconic roles all fade with time, leaving only the memory of the people who truly touched his life. He once said that an afternoon spent talking with someone could matter more than a classic film, because cinema eventually ends, but the way someone makes you feel when you are with them never disappears. Looking back on his entire journey, Mitchum stopped counting roles and started counting faces. And when asked about the people he loved most in his life, he did not respond with a long list or vague industry names. Instead, he spoke of 5 specific individuals who left a deeper mark on him than any stage light ever could. John Wayne, a loyal friend and attentive listener. In Robert Mitchum's memory, John Wayne was not simply a film star or an icon of the Western genre. He was one of the very few people Mitchum felt had real weight, even when the stage lights had gone out. In Hollywood, where everything could change after a single successful or failed role, Wayne represented the opposite, a man who seemed almost untouched by time or fame. What Mitchum remembered most was not Wayne's legendary performances, but his presence in everyday life. Wayne was not the kind of man who needed to dominate every room he entered. He did not speak excessively, did not try to impress others, and did not use his fame to create distance. Instead, he carried a natural calmness that made others automatically settle when he was around. In conversations, Wayne was rarely the one who spoke the most. He observed, listened, and responded only when it was truly necessary. But when he did speak, his words always carried weight. Not because they were more intelligent than others, but because they came from a level of maturity rarely seen in an industry built on constant display. Mitchum was often surprised to see Wayne sit and listen to others for long periods without showing any impatience. In the world of Hollywood, where everyone wanted to tell their own story, it was uncommon for a major star like John Wayne to genuinely take the time to listen. But Wayne did not listen merely to reply. He listened as if trying to understand the person in front of him, not their role or their fame. This became even clearer in the way he treated people on set. For Wayne, there was no strict distinction between star and worker. A lighting technician, a production assistant, or a director were all treated with the same level of respect. He did not change his behavior based on someone's position in the hierarchy. And it was precisely this consistency that created a very special kind of authority. Not loud, not showy, but naturally respected. Mitchum once said that John Wayne was the kind of person who made you feel safe when you were near him. Not because he protected you in a physical or authoritative sense, but because he created a rare sense of stability. In an industry where everything could collapse at any moment, that stability became an irreplaceable value. Wayne never tried to be the best person in the room, nor did he try to prove he was more important than anyone else. But the fact that he did not need to do so was exactly what made him one of the most influential figures in the eyes of those who worked with him. And for Robert Mitchum, that was why John Wayne was not just a colleague, but a true friend. Someone who made Hollywood feel a little less artificial whenever he was present. Kindness and a sincere smile. In Robert Mitchum's memory, Deborah Kerr was one of the rare people who brought a genuine sense of light into a Hollywood filled with competition and oversized egos. She was not the kind of person who appeared in a room to impress, nor someone who tried to dominate attention. Instead, she had a very subtle presence that lingered in people's memories far longer than expected. The first thing Mitchum always mentioned when speaking about Deborah Kerr was her smile. It was not a social smile or one used at the right moment, but a natural expression rooted in genuine kindness. When she arrived on set, the atmosphere around her seemed to soften. The usual tensions of filmmaking, time pressure, creative disagreements, or clashes of ego appeared to ease, simply because she was there. In an industry where people are often driven to assert their position, Deborah Kerr moved in the opposite direction. She did not carry an "I am a star" attitude, nor did she create distance between herself and others. To her, there was no sharp divide between a leading actor and someone working behind the camera. Everyone was part of the same creative process, and everyone deserved equal respect. Mitchum once observed that Deborah Kerr's professionalism was not defined by perfection in every performance, but by the consistency of her character. Whatever the situation, she remained gentle, polite, and never allowed fame to alter her behavior. This made her one of the few people Mitchum felt he did not need to read or be cautious around when working with. There was something even more distinctive that Mitchum noticed. Deborah Kerr was not only kind to important people, but also to those who were easily overlooked on set. A junior assistant, a lighting operator, or a backstage worker all received the same level of respect from her. And it was this consistency in how she treated others that created a character that was very difficult to fake. In Mitchum's memory, Deborah Kerr was not the loudest person, nor the one who made the strongest immediate impression. But over time, she became one of the people he remembered most clearly, not because of what she said or did on screen, but because of the sense of calm she left behind in those who worked with her. And perhaps, in a world full of large egos, that sense of calm was the rarest quality of all. Humphrey Bogart, honesty behind a rough exterior. In the public imagination, Humphrey Bogart was often associated with the image of a cold, tough, and somewhat distant man. The kind of character who stepped out of film noir with a sharp gaze and an emotionless voice. But for Robert Mitchum, Bogart was one of the most genuine people he ever encountered throughout his Hollywood career. What impressed Mitchum first was not Bogart's acting talent, but his complete lack of pretense. Bogart did not try to construct a version of himself that was better than who he really was. He did not say things simply to please others, nor did he adjust his personality to match public expectations or media narratives. If he liked you, you knew it. If he did not, you knew that immediately as well. There was no grey area, no ambiguity. This blunt honesty made Bogart stand out in an environment where most people were performing, even when the cameras were off. To Mitchum, Bogart felt like someone who did not participate in Hollywood's social game. He did not try to please everyone, nor did he aim to create a safe or polished image. He simply lived as himself, even if that sometimes made him difficult to approach. Yet, behind that rough exterior was a man with a very clear sense of loyalty. Bogart did not give his respect easily, but once he did, he kept it for a long time. He did not change his attitude based on someone's fame or success. For him, character mattered more than status, and sincerity mattered more than any form of networking strategy. Mitchum often felt that Bogart was not a pleasant person in the conventional sense, but he was undeniably a reliable one. You did not need to guess what he thought, nor worry about what he might say behind your back. In an industry filled with temporary relationships that shifted with the tides of success, that clarity became a rare and valuable quality. And perhaps that is why Bogart left such a lasting impression, not through perfection, but through truth. A kind of truth that was rough, sometimes uncomfortable, but always consistent. Marilyn Monroe, a soul longing to be understood. If John Wayne brought a sense of stability, Deborah Kerr offered calmness, and Humphrey Bogart embodied raw, unfiltered truth, then in Robert Mitchum's memory, Marilyn Monroe was something entirely different. Fragile, complex, and layered with emotions that very few people ever truly saw beneath the spotlight. On screen and in the eyes of the public, Marilyn was a symbol of beauty, charm, and glamour. But away from the stage lights, Mitchum saw another person. A woman who constantly tried too hard to be liked, always seeking to please those around her, as if afraid that the moment she stopped trying, the world would leave her behind. What struck Mitchum most was not Marilyn's fame, but the loneliness that came with it. She was always surrounded by people, always being watched, always at the center of attention, yet she never seemed truly understood. There was an invisible gap in the way she viewed the world, a sense that public admiration did not equal real understanding. Marilyn was often described as cheerful and approachable, but Mitchum noticed a much deeper sensitivity beneath that surface. She observed others carefully, constantly trying to anticipate what they wanted so she could respond accordingly. This created a strange cycle. The more famous she became, the harder she tried to be accepted, And the more she tried, the more exhausted she became with her own image. There were moments, according to Mitchum, when Marilyn asked a question no one could answer for her. If she were no longer a star, would she still be loved? That question did not come from arrogance, but from a very human insecurity, the fear that her worth only existed when she was being seen. And when the spotlight faded, what remained was not a Hollywood icon, but a very real human being. Sensitive, intelligent in her own way, and always longing for something simple yet difficult to attain, to be understood for who she truly was, not just for the image the world wanted to see, lasting friendship and laughter. Among the names Robert Mitchum mentioned, Jane Russell carried a completely different tone. If Marilyn Monroe was associated with loneliness and emotional emptiness, Jane felt like a warm point of light, where every form of tension seemed to ease simply through her presence. What Mitchum remembered most about Jane was not her famous beauty that once made her a Hollywood icon, but her laughter. It was not a performance for the camera, but something natural and genuine, a laugh so real that it could completely change the atmosphere in a room. For Mitchum, whenever Jane appeared and laughed, everything felt lighter, simpler, and less pressured. Jane Russell was not the kind of person who played Hollywood's usual power games. She did not try to build a complicated image, nor did she seek to become the center of attention. Instead, she lived in a straightforward and authentic way. That naturalness made others feel comfortable around her, without the need for defenses or distance. One of the qualities Mitchum valued most in Jane was her ability to listen. She did not listen in a social or performative way, waiting for her turn to speak. She genuinely cared about what the other person was saying. In an environment where everyone was often too focused on expressing themselves, having someone who truly listened became something rare and deeply valuable. The friendship between Jane Russell and Robert Mitchum was not loud or publicly displayed. It existed naturally, steadily, and did not need constant attention to remain intact over time. Some relationships in life are not measured by how often people meet, but by the feeling that no matter how much time has passed, they can meet again and speak as if nothing has changed. For Mitchum, Jane Russell was exactly that kind of person, a friend who did not need many words to prove her importance. When Robert Mitchum looked back on his entire life in his later years, he began to notice a very clear shift in how he remembered the past. The roles that once made him famous, the films that turned him into a star, and the career milestones that had once seemed most important, all of them gradually moved further into the background of his memory. What remained instead were people. Not the names on movie posters, but real faces, unscripted conversations, and ordinary moments that no camera ever captured. Mitchum came to understand that a career may define a person in the public eye, but it is relationships that define them in their own life. He realized that Hollywood, at its core, is a world of impermanence. Roles come and go, fame rises and falls, lights shine and then fade, but the people who pass through your life do not disappear so easily. They leave traces, sometimes faint, sometimes deep, but they always last longer than any film. John Wayne left behind a sense of steadiness and loyalty. Deborah Kerr embodied quiet, unshowy kindness. Humphrey Bogart represented an unfiltered truth. Marilyn Monroe reflected the loneliness behind the glow of fame. And Jane Russell brought a laughter that made everything feel lighter. 5 people, 5 different ways of existing, yet all of them shaped how Mitchum saw the world. And in the end, what he understood most clearly was that success is never a solitary journey. It is always made up of relationships, influences, and moments where human beings touch each other's lives, even if only briefly. When the spotlight fades, what remains is not the image of a star, but the memory of the people who once made life feel more meaningful. And that is the one thing that never disappears.